Once upon a time, in a lush and dense forest, there lived a young deer who roamed through the vast expanse in search of water. It had been hours since the deer began its quest, and the scorching sun above made the journey even more exhausting. Its throat was parched, and it was becoming harder to move forward, the thirst unbearable. The forest, dense with trees and wildlife, seemed endless, and no water source was in sight. After wandering for what felt like an eternity, the deer, weary and drained, finally gave in to its exhaustion and decided to rest beneath a large bush that offered some shade. With its legs aching and body fatigued, the deer lay down beneath the bush, its eyes half closed. Just as the deer was about to drift into a light nap, it heard something that immediately caught its attention: a distant sound of rushing water. Instantly, the deer jumped up, its thirst driving it to follow the sound. It hurried through the forest, bounding over fallen leaves and branches, until at long last the sound grew louder and the deer emerged into a clearing. There, in front of the deer, was a beautiful, wide river. The sight of the water filled the deer with overwhelming joy, as if it had just discovered a new world. It rushed to the river's edge, its heart pounding in anticipation. Without hesitation, the deer bent down to drink from the cool, refreshing stream. The water was just as sweet and life-sustaining as the deer had imagined. However, just as it began to drink, the deer glanced to its right. To its horror, it saw a hunter crouching by a nearby tree, silently holding a bow and aiming an arrow straight at the deer's vulnerable body. Panic surged within the deer, but it quickly turned its attention to the left. There, crouching behind the bushes, was a lion, its eyes fixed on the deer with hunger in its gaze. The deer's heart raced even faster, but before it could react, it looked behind itself, only to find a horrifying sight. A massive fire was spreading rapidly through the forest, consuming everything in its path, and now it was closing in on the deer. The deer stood frozen, utterly trapped. The river was before it, the hunter on its right, the lion on its left, and the fire creeping closer behind it. All escape routes were blocked, and fear gripped the deer's heart. There was no place to run, no way out of this perilous situation. The deer's mind raced as it thought about its options. It could try to flee toward the river, but the hunter and lion stood in its way. It could attempt to outrun the fire, but it was too far behind to escape that way. Time was running out, and the situation seemed dire. As the deer stood in despair, it suddenly realized something. The fear it was feeling, this overwhelming sense of doom, was not going to help it in any way. It had no control over the hunter, the lion, or the fire. The only thing it could control was its own actions. And so, despite the imminent danger surrounding it, the deer decided to remain calm. It thought to itself, "I'm going to die anyway, so why not make the most of this moment?" With that thought in mind, the deer returned to its task, drinking the water. It bent its head and resumed sipping the cool stream as if nothing else mattered. The moments passed slowly, and the deer remained focused on the water. In that brief time, something unexpected happened. Dark clouds began to gather in the sky, obscuring the sun. Soon the clouds opened up, and heavy rain began to pour down on the forest. The rain soaked the dry ground, and the fire behind the deer, which had been growing hotter and more threatening, was extinguished by the downpour. The flames fizzled out, leaving only the remnants of what had once been a roaring blaze. At the same time, the rain affected the hunter. The downpour blurred his vision, and his arrow, which had been aimed with precision, missed its target. The arrow flew into the bushes, and to the deer's surprise, struck the lion instead. The lion let out an agonizing roar and, in a moment of confusion, began to chase after the hunter, abandoning its pursuit of the deer altogether. The deer, now safely in the river, lifted its head and looked around. The hunter, once a threat on the right, had disappeared into the rain, his bow and arrow useless. The lion, once a threat on the left, was now occupied with chasing the hunter away. The fire behind the deer had been completely put out. The deer was free. In this brief and miraculous moment, the deer realized something profound. It had made it through a life-threatening situation, not by running, not by panicking, but by staying calm and focused on the task at hand. The deer had not allowed the overwhelming threats to cloud its judgment. It had not let fear dictate its actions. Instead, it had chosen to focus on what it could control, and that decision saved its life. This story carries a powerful message for all of us. Life often presents challenges, and sometimes those challenges feel insurmountable. Problems can come from all sides, just like they did for the deer, whether they are personal struggles, financial hardships, or unexpected obstacles. It can feel as though there's no way out, and fear may try to take over. But in such times, panicking and giving in to despair will not solve anything. What we can do is stay calm, remain focused, and keep working toward our goal. Just as the deer kept drinking the water, undeterred by the dangers around it, we must focus on our own goals and continue moving forward, no matter how difficult the journey becomes. When we face challenges, it's important to remember that we are often closer to success than we think. Sometimes, just when we feel trapped and helpless, something unexpected, like the rain in the deer's story, can come along and change everything for the better. So, don't let fear overwhelm you. Stay calm and keep doing your work, even when the world seems to be against you. Just as the deer eventually found freedom and safety, you too will find your way through the difficulties you face. In time, others will notice your perseverance and your efforts will pay off. Keep your focus and remember that the world often rewards those who don't give up, no matter how tough the road may seem. This story reminds us all that we have the power to overcome adversity, not by running away from it, but by facing it with patience, focus, and faith in our own abilities. Keep striving, and one day, success will be yours.